Welcome to COINVERSATIONS, South Africa's weekly catch-up in coins, banknotes, collecting, and the stories behind the history. With John and Landon, bringing you the latest from the world of South African numismatics. From rare finds to market trends to the stories every collector needs to hear. This is COINVERSATIONS!
Conversations, John. Like the best song ever. Talking about songs, welcome to Conversations episode 9. It's going to be quite exciting tonight. Something different, a lot of education here. So if you want to learn more about coins and banknotes, you're at the right place. Also, John, talking again about songs. Did you know that the Coin Club is on Spotify now?
Yeah. So South African Coin Collectors Club is on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. Go check it out.
YouTube Music.
YouTube Music.
There's like
It's on all of them.
5 or 6 every platform you can think of.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're going to create good quality hits like that, why would you not want to share it with the world? Yeah, that's quite exciting.
So go check it out. Next year we're releasing the Coinversations album. That would be fun. Okay, so tonight we're discussing what is numismatics. So a lot more. Okay, there was an earthquake there for a second, but a lot more educational. And we're going to go a bit in depth here tonight. So do stick around. We do hope that everyone will find value with this episode and that we will enjoy it. So we've got an array of coins in front of us and a couple of banknotes, and we're going to talk about what is numismatics and what gives a coin value, right? Because we love to talk about this coin, that coin, but what we need to understand is that not every coin gets the same type of value. There's different things that can give a coin value. So we'll be looking at that tonight.
Yeah, very excited, obviously, to give our opinion. A lot of the stuff we might say could be wrong, but giving our opinion of how we feel about things, the prices of it, and also why there's a difference, in price between certain items that many of us might think is the same. Tonight, for example, on the Weekend Wonder, there is a 1923 South African quarter penny from obviously a proof one. And often you can get that coin in proof in a low grade for like 1,000, 1,500 rand. But tonight's one is a top op. It's the best condition. And all of a sudden people are willing to pay, maybe 5 to 10,000 rand. We'll find out later tonight. So there's many examples like that we can talk about, and obviously get into bullion, get into banknotes, and obviously share all of that with you guys. So let's see, John, what do you have for us?
Right, so we're starting off with bullion, right? So bullion is the foundation level of any coin or of numismatics. And bullion is the value of the metal value inside the coin, the amount of it. So we're looking at the weight, we're looking at when it's gold, if it's 22 carat, if it's 24 carat. Those things do play a role. Sterling silver, 80% silver, 50% silver. There's a range of them. So we're going to be starting off with, let's start off with the honeybee.
Yeah,
So
quite interesting. The honeybee obviously being a product that is quite popular these days. And the honeybee is an ounce of silver. Very often you're looking at the spot silver price plus that, and potentially an extra 50 to 100 rand. So if you wanted an ounce of fine silver, usually the honeybee is almost like the cheapest way to do that. It's really quite incredible. Obviously also as a medallion. So if we compare this to the silver Kruger Rand, we have a difference. The silver Kruger Rand obviously is a legal tender coin. It's also a well-known name, the Kruger Rand being around since 1967. A lot of people want that silver Kruger Rand as a result of that, where if you compare it to a honeybee, it's only been around for like a year or so. It's also a medallion, very different type of product. And usually because of that, you do see like a 200 Rand, 150, 200 Rand price difference between the two, even though metal-wise they're exactly the same thing. So these are really good examples, I think, of how to get into silver and buying silver, obviously at a price very close to that bullion price.
Now Landon, you mentioned something very important there that we need to clarify. That's what we're doing here tonight. You mentioned the honeybees medallion and the Krugerrand's legal tender. What difference does that make, and why is there a price difference?
Well, I mean, if you look on the Krugerrand, actually, you can see that it has a currency or a monetary value, right? So on it there, the denomination, if people didn't know, as a trick question, a silver Krugerrand is technically a 1 rand.
I'll accept those every day of the week.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting and something really cool to see that. But yeah, you do see R1 on there, and interesting, the half ounce silver Kruger coming out is going to be a 50 cent. That's quite
Very
funny.
excited for those.
So yeah, so that's different. Obviously, it's also backed. It's issued by the SA Mint, obviously a government institution or a government mint, where the honeybee as a medallion doesn't have that value to it. You know, it's just the sunflower, the name African honeybee. So there's no denomination to it. Obviously, it's not issued by a government entity, so it can't be legal tender. Beautiful coin, this.
No, it's stunning. Stunning, stunning. All right, so we've got our bullion, we've explained legal tender, we've explained the medallion. Right, let's move a bit on. So looking at circulating coins, you get proof coins. Yeah, we can, that is a proof, right?
Yeah,
that is a proof.
This is exciting. I want to show this.
Yeah, that's a stunning.
So talking about the Odyssey, I did want to compare it. So the Odyssey, obviously coming out in 2025 as a new range from the SA Mint, and 2026, it's actually a 5 rand.
That's 5 rand.
Legal tender again, but this is a proof coin, and it's struck in a much lower mintage. So when you compare this to a Krugerrand, if you gave the two of them at the same price, you have to take the Odyssey. At the end of the day, it's a proof coin. It's beautiful, and like I said, it's in limited numbers. So comparing the two, there's a very big difference, and that's why the Odyssey is quite a lot more expensive than like a bullion Krugerrand, as an example.
But let's get a bit more in depth here. Let's throw it right. So we've got also proof Krugerrands. You do get the silver ones. So what does it mean when you look at the two? Obviously, the one's more shiny than the other one, but what does that mean on paper as well? Let's help the people with that tonight. So obviously, bullion is bullion, and we explained that it's legal tender and there's VAT and all that. But one thing when it comes to investments, obviously capital gains tax is the big thing. Whereas the proof Krugers, and this has always been a bit of a grey area, I always feel it's a bit of a grey area, but it is categorized as a numismatic item. It is a collectible. So on paper, it's a collectible because of the limited mintages, because of the finish of the coin, the certificates that you get, and that does not entail capital gains tax when you sell. That's a big difference, eh?
Yeah, and that almost makes it worth it, because very often you can get a proof Krugerrand and not much more. You know, I've seen sometimes where, yes, you can get the bullion one at the moment, let's say for 1.5, 1.6. You might end up going, if you wanted to get an early one, it could be just over 2,000, sometimes under it. You could be lucky and get it at a good price. So that extra 400-500 rand, 100% is worth it to get the proof compared to the bullion. And like you're obviously talking about the capital gains tax, 3, the numismatic item. And if you want something collectible, only a few people can have it. You know, like a Joburg coin show, they invented 1,000 as an example. Only 1,000 people maximum can have that. Where a bullion Krugerrand, they made millions and millions of them. So you can't even compare the two, to each other. And that's why for me those numismatic items do outweigh the bullion items.
Yeah, I just want to clarify: we're not financial advisors, not financial advice. But also what people don't understand when it comes to the capital gains is usually we're looking at like 20% capital gains tax. And that's not on the total amount, but only from the price that you purchased until the price you sold. So one thing we're also talking about here tonight with numismatics is record keeping. I'm just quickly, this wasn't planned, but like record keeping is very important when you do purchase your items, what you bought it for and what you eventually do sell it for tax purposes, if they ever had to come to that. Right, but we've spoken now about proof. Now we're going to get to the nicer stuff. The numismatic stuff, all right? So we've laid the foundation. So you can still readily available get your bullion items, your proof items every year. But items like this, okay, so this one actually ticks a couple of boxes here, Landon. It's a 1931 sixpence, but let's not look at that. Let's look at the grade first. We've got a proof grade, right? So here you've got an item that has a very low mintage compared. We're talking now firstly about mintage figures, right? So what we've seen in sixpences, you usually get your millions upon millions, where this one is only in a couple of thousand, if I'm correct.
62.
Oh, well, it is proof. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's only 62 in proof. That's correct. Right, so now you're looking at low mintage, and that's what we call key dates.
Yeah.
Obviously, 1931 and 1893 are the two big key dates. Obviously, a coin's couple in there, but that also adds to that numismatic value.
Yeah, again, you can't compare it. Now, even compared to a proof Krugerrand where 1,000 were minted, you suddenly have 62, which is nothing. And that's where it comes in. So ultimately, you can also decide what type of collector you are. Are you someone that wants those bullion items or silver coins as close as possible to the silver price, and then you're just stacking and stacking for silver or gold purposes? Or are you someone that's going to get into these rare numismatic items where if you think about 62, not all of those are even graded.
Yeah.
And, not all of those are in a very good condition sometimes. You got some that are PF details, you got PF 61s, impaired proofs, of course. And now all of a sudden a PF 63 or higher like this one we have here, suddenly it's worth a lot more, but it's not only 62, it's like a top 10, a top 20 of a certain type of coin. And obviously if you go towards that top pop, the price obviously increases a lot. So it's almost about having something that not many people can have. And that's obviously also a really big privilege, I guess, that comes with that.
Yes, and that touches actually on something else that we usually get, is that age alone does not give a coin value. Mintage figures are very important when it comes to coins, particularly in South Africa. So especially with the sixpences aren't usually very special coins in a sense, but obviously your 1931 is always a big year. Now, I want to talk about that age because it can also play a factor in the price. So here we've got a 244 to 249 AD Philip II Roman coin. It's a stunning ancient coin you've got here from a Roman emperor. This one is uncirculated. I mean,
it looks cool. Stunning. Look at the details.
I mean, look at this.
That's
stunning.
Some coins were made like 2 years ago. I don't know what happened in the change, but they look terrible. I mean, this coin's literally 1,700 years old.
No, this is
almost 1,800. My favorite joke when I do the auctions and I do the auctioneering for it, and I get an ancient coin, and sometimes they're bidding at like 400 or 500 rand. It's like it's not even 1 rand a year. You can get that coin for like 20 cents or 50 cents a year, if you had to calculate the age of it. Value is not necessarily an age. Like you said, I mean, we've got coins here that were minted, for example, like this Krugerrand, because of that silver content. And this silver Kruger is worth more than that ancient coin, right? And this was literally made a year ago as a difference.
Yes, and I mean, on Minted Monday 68, the big auction at Visani's Auction House. But tomorrow night.
You can't take your own auction and make it the best. Okay. Landon's lot's coming up on Tuesday night.
No, but I've got a Marcus Aurelius coin on. I've got to be honest, when we were looking at this coin, I've been a bit dumbstruck looking at it, because obviously if you've read the book Meditations and you know the story of Marcus Aurelius, and now I've got a coin from his actual reign, that adds a lot of pedigree and numismatics for me. It's the numismatics in its purest form, in my opinion. So age it does play a factor, but only with certain coins. I mean, there's so many ancients, coppers and stuff that you can buy in bags. It's not really worth that much because there was just simply so many of them. Right. I want to talk about the next type of coin, and we're going to pretend we haven't actually looked at this at all. But it's a 1953 3 pence and MS65. So what we want to talk about is high grades, Landon. When you have a coin that the catalog is not particularly something special, but because of the high grade, let's say close top 5 coin or a top pop, then you can get some really big interest in that coin.
I just want to say there, Parker's Fishing said, remember Treasure Trove Thursdays. So thank you, Parker's Fishing. Appreciate that one. Luckily, Slade's not right. So we can.
Well, he doesn't watch Conversations.
He actually, to be fair, he did win last week in the competition that we have. Obviously, to see between Minted Mondays that John does, Landon slots that I do, and then obviously Slade does the Treasure Trove Thursdays, to see who can get the highest hammer for the week. And you won the week before, eh?
Yeah.
I'm under pressure. Eh? It's been quite a few weeks. I'm going to have to perform this week. So talking about grades, obviously we speak about the 1931 sixpence. So that is valuable because there's only 62 of them minted in proof.
Yes.
Now, if you had a normal 1953 ticky, it's really just silver. Right? It's nothing special. You can probably get it for 40 Rand, maybe even sometimes close to uncirculated. You can get it for 100 Rand, like quite cheap.
Yeah.
But here you got an MS65, which is one of the best grades ever for that coin. And suddenly people are willing to pay 2,000 Rand, for that coin. A coin that could be worth 40 Rand, but now it's worth 2,000 Rand.
Yeah.
And that's how that condition. I mean, we see it with big coins where you could, for example, get a really bad VF Details felt bond for 80,000 or 100,000 Rand. But you can get a MS64, 65. Suddenly you're paying 500,000 Rand. As a result too.
Yeah, and I think a very good example for this, something that's caught me off guard, is the Space Ranger Privy Mark, right? Because of that elusive 70 grade.
Yeah.
And because if you do have one in 70, what the guys are willing to pay for that coin, yes, it's kind of still just bullion, but because it's so elusive in the 70 grade, the price that it does fetch 20,000, 25,000 Rand, it just showcases that grading aspect when it comes to numismatics.
And also the difficulty of finding it. I mean, try and find a Space Ranger Privy in a PF70 right now. And also try and find it for less than 40,000 Rand even. So it's a modern Kruger Rand that people are paying that amount of money for, which is shocking in a way. But if you can't find something, the price is going to go up. It completely makes sense. And talking about grades like this, John, I urge people to go onto NGC and even onto the SANS registry, obviously, that launched recently, and search certain South African coins in the 1940s, 1950s that we might think this coin is worth nothing because it has a mintage that is very high and it's not special. But on many circumstances, we see coins like 1948, 1945, 1950 in mint state. There's so many years where if you look at it, top pops are like MS63, 64s, 65s. And it's not easy for certain years to get coins in high grades. And that's a very underrated thing. So we can't only look at mintage figures. We have to really look for it. So, yes, it's difficult to find a Space Ranger Privy. But imagine you looked for a specific year like a 1953 ticky and you wanted the top pop. Try and find it. There might only be a handful of them. It's not that easy.
And it just speaks to, again, the type of collectors you get and what type of collecting you want to do. Another type of collecting that we want to talk about tonight is I've got a coin here in 1939. It belongs to this gentleman, maybe. 2.5 shilling. And we're going to talk about provenance. This is Bakewell collection.
Listen, that coin has a lot going for it, John. It's a 2.5 shilling.
Yeah.
It's from the Bakewell collection.
It's mint state, MS62. That's stunning. And it's from the Bakewell collection. So one thing that I've come to fall in love with is the provenance coins and the stories behind them. Obviously, there's the Gatsby. There's a couple of big collections out there. And but that's a bit more, would it be fair to say, a bit more advanced numismatics when you start not just studying the coins, but actually the collectors who've gone before?
So
what's your thoughts on that?
So I have a different idea. In a way, I don't think provenance should matter. Because, if you have two coins and it's a MS62, it's the same thing. One has the provenance, one doesn't. But what it does bring is that trustworthiness. It's that track record of where it comes from. I mean, imagine owning a coin that comes from the Gatsby collection where the single 9 was part of. Yes, you're not going to be able to afford the single 9, but you might be able to afford one of the coins from that collection, and that's almost like the closest you can get to that coin, as a way. So in a value sense, it shouldn't matter, I would say, but it definitely does, because it gives you that element of trust. So for me, the Gatsby one is obviously very top because of the single 9, but South African provenance, like the Bakewell collection, I think it means a lot,
And it's very interesting when it comes to provenance. You're looking at the character of the collector, looking at obviously the status of the collection, and you're kind of associating with it. You're buying a bit into that. So obviously we had a couple for Rook coins, and I mean, that's something spectacular. So yeah, I think it's very special. I do think it adds an element to numismatics, which is it's beautiful for me to have a provenance coin, to understand, where this coin is coming from, that lineage, if so to say. Right, now I want to talk about very exciting, right? So before we get to the banknotes, which I know Landon loves, when you get high value items, because sometimes people don't understand, they might have a top up coin, or they might have a key date coin in a lower grading. Well, when you tick a couple of these boxes. When a couple of these boxes are met and there's a real demand, collector's demand for a coin, then you're talking about serious money. And there's no better coin to illustrate that, I believe, what we have here, than the Veldpont.
Yeah, we're very fortunate today that John obviously did bring it from home.
Yeah. Find it on the Signature Auction. Signature Auction's around the corner as well. Next weekend, Signature Auction. It's lot 55. It's a Veldpont MS63.
That is the biggest coin we've had this year so far. 100%. That is
MS63.
It's the #1 top coin of the year for 2026 so far. To see a high mint state Veldpont, I think it's already bidding with commission at almost like 300,000 already, John. So
crazy.
It's a big coin. So what makes that coin more special than, let's say, a random top up, John?
Yeah, so you've got to go through the elements, okay? So obviously there's bullion. That's irregardless at this point. Okay, the story. The story is the big selling point. Obviously, it's emergency money. It was made during the Anglo-Boer War in 1902. You've got the low mintage of only 982. You've got the pedigree of the grade. You've got a very seriously high grade for Veldpont MS63. What more is there to say? I mean, it's just one of those coins. The story is universally known, which also does help its case. A lot of people, obviously, it's associated deeply into the war, which a lot of people are very tied to, a lot of family members, a lot of people. I mean, we speak to a lot of collectors, and they talk about their great-grandparents that was in the war, where they were at the time of the war, and it's something that they feel very strongly connected to. And this is one of those coins that does bring out those emotions. And I think numismatics, at the end of the day, is a very emotional-driven hobby. Is it fair to say that? Because it's what you're passionate about at the end of the day. What is that you love?
If you do love it and you get that history and that story, you also understand why it's so important.
Yes.
The Veldpont being the last and the final coin minted during that ZAR period. The Afrikaners basically losing that second Anglo-Boer War, and that was the end. That was that last fight for sovereignty, that last moment of being a nation. If you want to be a sovereign country, you need your own currency. And to push that forward in that last and final moments in Pilgrim's Rest. Imagine having a mint where you make your coins and you can't even mint it there, and you have to go to Pilgrim's Rest, which is not a very big place, and you're stuck there in the veld and you mint these coins, which potentially when they made it, they maybe didn't even think people were going to see it or use it, or
No.
it was almost the symbolism of it.
Yes.
And that history and story is what makes it, and yes, there are coins that have way lower mintages than a Veldpont. We talk here about a 1931 sixpence, and it's got a mintage and proof of 62. Now you're comparing 62 to 986, right? As a comparison between the two. You can't, but it's that story and that history, and that's where the hobby and the numismatics comes in, because that's almost better than mintage. Mintage was created. A story is because of circumstances, and you gotta love it for that reason.
You've got to love it. And just taking it now to another turn, what we saw in South Africa in numismatics in the 2010s, unfortunately with the Mandela Firebrand and a lot of these sets that came out, there can't be artificial scarceness. You can't create an artificial demand for these coins. And that's important to understand, is that, you know what, if I had to take this sixpence today and go sell it for R1 million, I'm not going to, the newspaper might say, your numismatics is booming, but that might not be the case. Someone must suck it. That it's about the ability to resell it again. And that's the beauty of your big coins like the Veldbond, is that they do uphold their value. We did see a massive knock in the numismatic market as the internet did come out and everything became freely available, auction houses and this. Beforehand, I've heard so many stories about that the search was greater than finding the coin. When you finally found the coin, you pay whatever it is. What you needed to pay. Obviously, the market has changed. I've heard a lot of people who would pay R1 million for this coin, R2 million for this coin, because it was it was just so scarce in the 1990s. You just didn't know about it, right? So obviously that did impact the market, but we are seeing a big boom again with new collectors coming in. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, and also just to talk about the Veldbond, most of those Veldbonds are removed from jewelry. They're scratched, they're polished, they're in terrible condition. You know how sad it is? Just this week I saw 4 Veldbonds. And all of them were mounted, in brooches or stuff like that. And if you really had to look at the population, go onto NGC's pop report in South Africa and look at the Veldbond and see how many of them have graded mint state, and realize that it's way less than 5% of that total population. And that's also something you have to factor in. A lot of times this is a coin that was a symbolism of that end of that Afrikaner period during the ZAR, and people want to be proud of it, so you're going to wear it as a brooch, or you're going to have it in jewelry or something. Imagine having a necklace in 1906 and you're like, things changed, but you got your Veldbond necklace. How sad is that? But people were obviously proud of it and they were showing it. But you've got to factor things like that in. When we talk about a Burgerspont, if you guys read Francois Milan's Burgerspont book that came out about a month or 2 ago, you'll understand how many of those were also turned into jewelry and brooches and stuff. And so yes, 986 or over 600 for the Burgerspont sounds like a lot, but it really is nothing if you find those perfect condition coins.
Yeah, and I mean, Engelbrecht also mentioned in a couple of his books is that after the war, how many Afrikaners took the ZAR coinage and made jewelry of it, from the tikkie to the 2.5 shilling. It was made jewelry. We found a lot recently that's been made into jewelry, and that upsets me, because when you look at an 1898 bond and it's still going for spot, that upsets me, because we don't know how much is left of this. How many of it's been melted. There's been no way to record it. So when you do see a coin that has been graded mint state, it's truly something special.
A story that many people might not know, talking about a big 5 coin, the Sammy Marks tikkie, 215 of them were minted.
Yeah.
That was minted, and the idea for Sammy Marks was actually to create a belt for his wife. Those 215 coins were going to be on a belt, but then they realized that was going to be way too heavy. Obviously that also didn't happen. Luckily, because then every Sammy Marks
would have been one belt. Imagine one belt.
I mean, that probably would be in a museum or something. Yeah. But that would have taken that out. It would have been like the big 4 or something.
What are the people saying in the comment section there?
We got quite a lot of comments here. We got nothing but PF70. That could be a way to collect. If you want coins, you only get PF70s.
PF70s.
He says here, have you guys seen the movie The Creer Miljoene? It was showcased in 1967. It recreates the history of the Veldbond. It's an Afrikaans movie.
I haven't seen that.
Maybe we should watch it. We should have a movie night tonight. What are you doing after this, John?
Let's go. We're going to have a movie night. That would be pretty cool.
That would be cool, right? A coin club movie night or something.
Yeah.
Just have like a numismatic movie. I mean, think about it. Coin club organizers. Supply and demand. People are talking. Roger says he really loves military-related items and military history. So quite a lot. Obviously, we're gonna have to watch this movie now. Um, yeah, got a lot of comments coming through, and Parker's Fishing says he really wants a coin from the Fundus Bay collection.
Yeah, I'm sure we've got a couple that will be coming on auction.
Yeah, we do see quite a few. Obviously, talking about big collections like the Fundus Bay collection, the Bakewell, the Gatsby, the Farouk obviously is different. You don't see that a lot. But there are big ones, and like I said, it's trusted. You're getting one of the best coins out there.
Yeah. So it's just been.
John?
I'm thinking about this Veldbond, man. I'm thinking about this Veldbond. But one thing that's so important, and what Len and I are trying to do here, is education. I was with a gentleman actually, and we were talking about coins. And it was one of my friends. He came to visit, and I was showing him my collection of 2.5 shillings in proof, and he had no idea what this thing is that I'm putting here in front of him, a mint state, a proof and whatnot. And I explained the mintage figures to him, why it's so rare. And it was so awesome to see again that first time expression of, wow, this is really something rare. And when he saw the date, which might not be that long ago for us as collectors, 1940s, 30s, for him it was like, whoa, this is almost 100 years old. And it was just like, what? It just took me back as to, this is very special what we do in numismatics. It's really gatekeepers of our history. And it was just very special for me.
Time maybe to get to something important, John. I know you love your banknotes. I must say, I was never a banknote person. Up until 2 years or so ago, I only collected coins. I had a few older circulated notes or so in my collection, but I never cared about it. And for me now, I'd almost much rather buy a banknote than a coin. I don't know, I've fallen in love with it. Heinz Verse obviously has put a lot of his life into banknotes, and he's created a way for many people in South Africa to collect banknotes and understand the different prefixes. I know he always tells a story of the modern notes. Now, you do get a lot of notes that have the prefixes OO or II or XX or YY or ZZ. And it looks weird because the double O looks like zeros and the I's look like ones. And obviously a lot of people sometimes see those Kanyaso 100 Rand banknote or something and it's ZZ and think it's a replacement. So firstly, replacement notes ended in 1990, the final ones being the Stull series where you had some XXs with that. So as soon as you see a newer design for Stulls changing to the big 5 animals in 1992, you'll see that all of those notes, there's no replacements. That's it. So when you do see a ZZ or a XX for 100 or 200 Rand note or something like that, they're not replacements. Yeah. So important to remember that. I'm comparing 2 banknotes here and also explaining the value of them. So firstly, these notes are both uncirculated. This is a normal C prefix. It's C388 as the prefix. It's a Gerrit de Kock 10 Rand banknote. And this note, even uncirculated, is like a 40 Rand note, 50, 60 Rand. It's not that special because obviously they were minted in the millions and millions, and there's a very high amount of them remaining in uncirculated condition. Then when we get to the Y prefix here for the 10 Rand, it's a replacement. So when you look at the prefix on the banknote, you're going to see W, X, Y, and Z as the replacement notes. For the 10 Rand, it's a Y. Firstly, a 1 Rand is a Z. A 2 Rand is a Y and a W. The 5 Rand is a X. You also do get XX. The 10 Rand is a Y. You do get XX also. The 20 Rand is a Z, also with XX. And then the 50 Rand is the XX. So you do get all the different prefixes and letters for that. And obviously that makes a difference in value. So suddenly a note that might be a 20, 40 Rand note becomes a 100 or a 200 Rand note. And some of the prefixes are very rare. You get a modern Gerrit de Kock XX banknote where only 180,000 of them were printed. And that note has a 10,000 Rand catalog value. But a normal 5 Rand is going to have a 20 Rand catalog value, even though they look exactly the same. So quite important. John, you love your banknotes.
Oh, I love my banknotes. No, I'll get into it. Listen, we got a comments coming in there.
Okay, I see Thomas said explain what a replacement note is. So a replacement note, when the banknotes, thank you so much, Thomas. When a banknote does get printed, it obviously has a certain serial number. and often they get removed from circulation because it's a little bit off center, the color is incorrect. Think about a lot of error banknotes or type of errors that you can get out there. And then that same serial number, this one is 682028 as an example, it will be printed like this one with a Y9 with that same serial number. So it's kind of one that would have gone into circulation, it's been removed, and the replacement obviously replaces that and obviously gets out. So it's quite impressive to see that. Obviously that's why you will never find the same issues, you will never find the same serial number, like the note that, imagine having the error note that's removed and the replacement of that. You'll never see that, but it would be cool.
Listen, I'm having a look at the time. Weekend Wonder is about to start. I do believe this is our most informative episode yet. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've shared a lot about what gives a coin value. Please do not forget about our giveaway that's ending next week, just before the signature auction for an Odyssey 1 ounce. So if you want to win the coin, you got to go to our Instagrams. You got to go follow us both, subscribe. Please do share it, where we are trying to get as many people into numismatics as possible. Education always comes first. And Landon, any closing thoughts on your side?
Also, do remember for everyone in the Free State, there is a Bloemfontein meetup or show expo that is happening on Saturday. We'll be there, John.
Yes, we will be at Imoya Estate for the Bloem Expo. We're looking so forward to it. So if you're in Central South Africa, please do come through on Saturday. We will be there. We're going to do maybe a couple of interviews.
Yeah,
let's do some interviews.
If you're in Bloem, you're going to get interviewed.
No, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. So at Imoya Estate on Saturday the 27th.
And again, thank you so much for everyone joining Coinversations episode 9. Like John said, Weekend Wonder is starting in 7 minutes. And also there is a gold rush tonight at 8:30. So check out those 2 auctions. And then obviously the best auction of the week, Landon's Lots, is coming up on Tuesday. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll leave it there. I'll let you have it. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your evening.